Good afternoon to everyone watching us live on Zoom and Facebook. As promised, we will start on time. It's 2 o'clock. And welcome to another edition of SCMAP Live, presented in partnership with SAP. I am Rose Tubeo, your host for this afternoon. Well, in the past few months, we have explored various ways to make our supply chains more resilient and responsive to our customers' and partners' needs. This comes as we continue to face various disruptions and challenges across our organizations, and we come to grips with long-term shifts that we have witnessed over the past couple of years. One of these shifts is the need for better coordination and collaboration between all points in the value chains, just as what's being advocated by the principles behind lean supply chains, from tier two, tier one suppliers to our production hubs, to distribution centers, to sales points, and all the moving parts in between. We now know too well that our supply chains can be disrupted, even by events that seem to happen seemingly outside because of the bullwhip effect. And this has huge implications on our costs, efficiencies, service levels, and ultimately customer satisfaction. And more importantly, it impacts our economy, right? Particularly as we continue to emerge from this pandemic. So how do we bring together all elements and these variabilities in our supply chains, particularly the processes and solutions that make them work, the people behind them, and the technologies that enable them, with a single line of sight to build intelligent, resilient, and sustainable supply chains? This afternoon, we will have speakers and panelists from across the world who will share their perspectives on this key question. But before we continue, remember that you can ask your questions to our speakers through the chat or Q&A boxes on Zoom. We will get to them before the end of the program. All right, so let us begin with our first speaker, Rajesh Mohan. He is a director of the Digital Supply Chain Center of Excellence of SAP Southeast Asia. He has over 20 years of experience in supply chain and manufacturing across multiple industries, having worked with major firms like Sinarmas, Suntory, Indofood, and San Miguel. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to Rajesh Mohan.
Thank you very much, Rose, for that quick and short and sweet introduction. And I actually enjoyed that video before the session. Okay, let me just share my screen very quickly. Rose, just let me know if you're able to see my slides, and then probably I can kickstart my keynote. Do you see my screen?
Yes, Rajesh.
Thank you again, Rose. Okay, wonderful. Okay, I mean, to all the wonderful Philippine customers in the call, it's been our pleasure to share next 1 hour with you all. And isn't it beautiful to see how the world is slowly coming back to its normal from the past 2.5 years of struggle, which each and every family has faced and it is still facing. But at least it is great to see some light at the end of a tunnel, wherein things are encouraging, and it is giving some hope for the people to come back to work, and of course again meet people, and of course celebrate together or speak for get-togethers or families trying to talk to each other, etc. Right? It's just a wonderful thing. But of course, during this last 2.5 years, there was also one major change which has happened. I mean, when we spoke to many of our customers across this part of the world, some of the questions raised by them was, how can I make my supply chain as a strategic driver? Or, do I have a right set of people across my supply chain so that I can really put my service levels, inventories on top? Or, how do I really make my supply chain agile and productive? And how do I fight this component shortages which I have faced during these tough times? So what we think is that in the last 3 years, CEOs or the CXOs have realized that, supply chain has become the backbone of them to support in tough times. But of course, it made them to realize that, yes, even being a backbone, I should really take care of it so that that can become the fundamental driver of my strategic priorities of my company. So On top of it, we also see the kind of supply chain, how it has evolved. In a way, it has evolved in the last 2 to 3 years, because it has been truly global, where Central Asia was becoming the supplier of major components to across all the global customers, majorly. But I think this pandemic has taught us that how can I really have a distributed and local supply chain, so that I can reduce the transportation cost. At the same time, I also have alternative supplies so that I don't depend on single players. Plus, also, it made one more major change basically. So we used to think sequentially, like for example, if it is a manufacturing automation which focused only on manufacturing, or if it is a logistics optimization focused only on, let's say, for example, truck monitoring, truck loading optimization, etc. And of course, when we say design, how can I really design my products which are sustainable, etc. But over this years, it has also changed, where people are now thinking, how can I make it as a kind of a network where each and every pillar of my supply chain, be it manufacturing plant or my logistics head or my maintenance head or my design or even my planning guys, can come together and run a kind of a network supply chain. That's a major thing which we see, which is happening in the market, against which we are also adopting our solutions to help our customers in that context, right? So as I said before, these compartments like design, plan, manufacture, deliver is good. As long as you do the optimization in one of the pillar, is good. But it also triggers a sub optimization in the next pillars. These are the 5 pillars we call in supply chain, where one optimization in one fundamental pillar will trigger multiple sub optimizations, which we think the solutions in the market are not able to address that in a cohesive fashion. If I have to take an example here, for example, let's say you are a company, located just 3 kilometers from one of your strategic customer, where you understood what is the demand, supply, inventory, and let's say, for example, how these products can be looked at, right? So, in the sense, when this use cases, for example, if when this use case is looked at, so let's say you understood all these aspects: demand, supply, inventory, and service levels. As an outcome of this planning process, you have decided to produce and deliver from plant A, which is very closely located to your customer. But with this planning step, we are just making sure that we are minimizing our inventory levels and minimizing our transportation costs, while maintaining a very good service level by closely located, plus also making sure your transportation costs are reduced. The demand plus has been handed over to manufacturing, and as long as this execution gets closer, we do normally manually do some adjustments, like for example, how much quantity to be produced, in which production line it has to be produced, or in what production sequence it has to be done. So, or how many ships, etc. But in this step, the planning efforts are around optimizing the plant capacity and resource utilization, thus minimizing your manufacturing cost, which is also a silo. For example, planning did its plan, and manufacturing, when it is very close, does its plan. But let's say when the delivery time is very close, you planned ahead of your transportation requirements, that immediately went to load and ship this products received from production. So in this step, you try to maximize your load and minimize your transportation costs while achieving delivery time, which means all the teams expecting the product to be available, when to be available, and manufacturing plan did its plan and transportation did its plan. However, let's say, for example, this is all fundamentally good when all line of business do their work in a synchronized and coordinated way. But suddenly, let's say on the execution day, one of an electric transformer that feeds the electricity for the plant experienced overheating, right? And it has gone down, which has brought down the capacity of the production plant from 100% to 20%. And they have to wait until the maintenance operations comes and fix the problem. As you wait, the time is passing by, the plant is underperforming, and the order lead times are getting compromised, and the expected service level and delivery agreements might not be reached. So as an immediate act, decision has to be made. And in this case, you might think probably plant manager has to make a decision. But just imagine, for example, plant manager has suggested that he has to increase the working hours from 2 to 4 shifts to produce more and expect the amount of finished goods probably little with little delay. That might probably increase the manufacturing cost, labor cost, utility cost, etc. But it might be able to deliver to the customer probably with little delay. On the other side, logistics manager checks what is the global inventories. Probably I may have to ship it from plant B, but that is located 3 times farther than from my current customer. So the logistics manager will think probably, how do I get that inventory? And I am in a situation to compare this inputs. Like, for example, what is the trade-off I'm making to the company, right? Is it a cost versus benefit and timeline, deadline? In this case, the production, the logistics, and the planning, because the planning would have already seen the fluctuated demand from the same customer. There is a need for these 3 stakeholders to come and quickly align what is the best decision that could really benefit the company, and at the same time to meet the expected customer service level. Which means there needs a sub-optimization between the modules like planning modules, manufacturing, and delivery to work together to come out with the best possible outcome. And that's where we think, we need a network supply chain where the supply chains can be talking to each other on the juncture of the exception happening so that you can resolve it in the best possible way. For a manufacturer, manufacturing head, his solution might be great. For a delivery guy, his solution might be great. For a planning guy, probably he might want to adjust the demands accordingly. So, but all these 3 needs to be imbibed together to make a decision. And that's where we think there is a need for a network supply chain in place. So, and if it is only one product with one customer, what I'm saying is, probably we can be done orally, right? But we are talking about multiple suppliers, few hundred products, few production plants, multiple distribution channels, few different warehouses, multiple logistics service providers. And on top of this, the variability and complexity that exists in the demand supply in the business, which adds to really the complexity at which the organizations to plan complex. So, and on top of all these challenges, the human factor need to be considered as well, because we believe that the bullwhip effect which the companies have faced even during COVID was because of a major human factor between multiple departments of the supply chain as well, where they try to overreact or they try to underreact, which really caused the issues. Where we think probably as a solution, we can help to make a differentiator to your enterprise to make that sub-optimization within the pillars of supply chain, right? So when SAP, we say, we enable our customers with 3 major aspects, right? Number 1, we provide that business technology platform, which gives you that, platform that gives you a differentiator to develop your own differentiating applications on top of which we have this core application sitting with the industry-specific end-to-end processes delivered. And if I have to take just one example, that when I say what do we mean by that is basically, this is one of a live customer in SAP's customer, who what he has done is, they understood this kind of sub-optimizations that needs to happen within the company. And what they have done is they've gone beyond the kind of traditional siloed applications. Rather, what they've done is they said that, okay, I will create a video wall. And I know all those applications really can work interdependent, but how I can really make sure that my relevant stakeholders can sit on top of those exceptions, on top of whatever the capabilities provided by the software on top. So what they have done is they have created a video wall, which is basically, it's basically they wanted to bring all their employees, into one room. So it has close to 28 workstations, each one a workstation for an employee who represents a specific part of a larger integrated process to be represented in a video wall. And what do they do in this video wall is they have a complete view in near real time of their sales orders, the inventory, the materials, the logistics, the production, assets, delivery data. And even they have integrated it with GPS and cameras. So when there is a situation in a specific part of the process, the employee can push a screen and KPIs to the video wall so that the rest of the employees, just not him, right? The rest of the employees could collectively collaborate in assessing the situation and making the best decision needed for that exception what they have come across. Not only the production monitoring, but the real-time monitoring of the business by putting together solutions across all the pillars. And so that's one of our customer who have gained really, and this they have done it I think 5 to 6 years before, which helped them to survive the COVID period in a much better, responsive, technology that really gave them the enough time to react, decide, and make the best possible outcome for their business, right? And the solution, one of the solution they have considered was integrated business planning, and this solution was fundamentally integrated their entire business planning process together. And if I have to give you some numbers, I think this solution being used by almost across 68 countries, which means they are localized to your country's requirement across 29 industries. And almost the kind, if you just look at the value of the goods which are being planned by one of the solution called integrated business planning of all the pillars is basically 3 trillion. That's the value of the materials that are being planned by our customers across the globe. And of course, I can share this link over the chat window. Basically, that gives you the kind of perspective is available to customers, which really gives you really how the solutions are coming together for our customers. So you can always look at it, how many are the reference customers, and what are the planning usage statistics. For example, if I have to give one more astonishing number, so it is also use Excel UI. So 14,400 Excel logins being done daily, or in fact, 7,000 optimization runs are being done daily, right? So these are some astonishing numbers where we are helping many customers not only with the capability of the tool, but we also bring all of them together in a single room, right? We give them virtual customer roundtables or customer network summits, etc., to our customers to see really how we can help them during some tough times, basically. So you can imagine, this, and we are literally signing one customer every 2 days between new. That was the need, especially or a pull from the market where they have to see really how they can really make supply chain as their strategic driver. So with that, I think that's my last slide, where we think we have to make this as a network supply chain rather than a sequence supply chain. And for this, if you want to understand really what do we mean by this network supply chain, we will give you a link in the chat box. So you can click and you can even experience now really what do we mean by design to operate network supply chain for discrete industries and for process industries, respectively, by clicking this, and that link should be in your chat box now. So with that, we have many more exciting discussions coming ahead, and I would like to give my session back to Rose, our sweet host, to take us ahead. Thank you, Rose. Back to you.
Thank you very much there, Rajesh, for that very interesting discussion. Indeed, gone are the days where we think sequentially, but more of like a complex network supply chain, and a major change where everything is highly integrated. And this was pushed and triggered by the pandemic, I should say. That level of optimization is really very instrumental to a successful supply chain decision in any organization or any industry. And yes, guys, should you be interested further on what Rajesh was discussing a while ago, you may want to ping the URL that I pasted over there for you to understand the digital support that SAP can offer for your organization. Okay, it is time for our panel. where we dive deeper into how we can make our supply chains intelligent, resilient, and sustainable. Let me introduce our panelists for this afternoon. Joining us is Malachy Martin, Global Director of the Digital Supply Chain Center of Excellence of SAP. That's him. Hi, Malachy. Originally, he is from Northern Ireland. He has over 30 years of experience in the software industry and has worked with companies across the transport, retail, energy, finance, and telecommunications industries. Yeah, and he speaks with us from Northern Ireland. Good morning, Malachy. It's about 7 a.m.-ish there, right?
It is, yeah. Good morning.
Okay, and he woke up, kumusta? He woke up really early for us, guys. Okay, and also joining us today is Suzy Urbano, Vice President for Enterprise Services of the Information Services Group of Globe Telecom. She leads the team that manages the internal enterprise systems of Globe and its subsidiaries, covering finance, supply chain, HR, and other functions. Across her 30-year career, she has worked for the likes of SAP and Eaton Properties before assuming her current role in 2016. Good afternoon there, Suzy.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Excited also to learn about Globe's initiatives on sustainability. All right, our final panelist is SCMAP's very own Pierre Carlo Curay. He is president, that good-looking guy over there. He is president of the premier supply chain organization in the country and plays a key role in moving our supply chain reforms and initiatives with various stakeholders in government and industry. He's also co-founder and CEO of logistics technology firm Insight SCS and vice president of strategic solutions of XBC Logistics. Good afternoon, Carlo.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Nice to see everyone here.
All right, and of course, moderating this panel discussion is Simone Pigason of SAP. Now, Simone, over to you.
Thank you, Rose. Good afternoon, everybody. Maybe let me introduce myself a little bit. My name is Simone Pigason. I'm coming live to you from Tanawan, Batangas.
Wow.
And I'm very happy to be moderating this panel of rock stars. Rock stars because we have a representation from all the different vantage points, as I may say. So one would be from Suzy, right? From telco and retail. One would be, of course, a representation of the SCMAP members from Pierre, and of course, from a technology advisor in the form of our Netherlander, Malachy Martin. So really rock stars of a panel. And so maybe before I get to the first question, there was a Q&A question a while ago during Rajesh's keynote, wherein the topic of procurement was mentioned. Now, when we talk about the digital supply chain, resilient and sustainability, we're not going to be able to deliver it in a 10-minute keynote. So maybe I just like to emphasize before I dive deeper and ask the panels, right? Procurement is definitely part of the supply chain. Procurement strategies is one of the key pillars that would be critical and important. We talk about integrated business planning, wherein demand and supply should be integrated not just in terms of technology, but in terms of function areas and the collaboration across multiple teams: sales, procurement, demand planners, and production. We'll talk further about that, but maybe let's start with a very general kind of topic on supply chain, shall we? Suzy, Pierre, and Malachy, analysts have said there's really a change in supply chain from post-pandemic 2019, during the pandemic, and now that the borders are easing in. Let me ask you, because you're there, you are right there in your vantage points, are there really very big differences? And if so, what are these? Suzy, can I just pick on you. Do you see any difference in Globe's perspective in terms of supply chain?
Hi, Simone. Thank you for that question. There's definitely a big difference in how we manage a supply chain in Globe now. And one of the many reasons for this is actually the change in the customer behavior, expectations, and values. Now, for individual consumers like you and me, this digital era has really made us expect products and services to be accessible, always available, and delivered at the fastest time possible. I'm sure when you do online shopping, you will quickly search and look for another vendor if the current vendor you are looking at can only deliver in 1 or 2 weeks, right? So with this consumer behavior and expectations, our business objective and aspiration for our supply chain changed a lot. We are now targeting same-day delivery. So that one objective necessitates us to change a lot of our processes and policies during the pandemic. We actually enhanced our applications, we implemented new tools, we even added new logistic partners just to be able to do that aspiration. Now, in terms of systems, I can say that we're actually well prepared. Our digital journey can be backtracked from several years ago, and we actually already implemented SAP Integrated Business Planning, SAP IBP that was mentioned earlier, in 2018. And we migrated our SAP S/4HANA in 2019. And that's actually the one that really put together the entire supply chain management, because we actually also implemented SAP Ariba way back in 2017. So it completes the picture of the entire landscape for a very good supply chain management. So we're very well positioned when the pandemic hits. It's like, okay, we just run like it's BAU.
Business as usual.
Yes. But SAP IBP really helped us improve our forecasting and allocation, making sure that stocks are in the right place at the right time. And although there's still, of course, some supply constraints, especially for iPhones, we know the supply for iPhones are, we used SAP Fury to simplify access to inventory and make it visible across all channels. And we developed programs, ABAP programs in SAP HANA, to automate the identification of inventory proximity to the delivery address. So with the help of our logistics partners, we are now starting to do that same day delivery to some areas in the Visayas region. So that's actually just one example for the individual consumers, but for corporate businesses or companies, there's another factor and expectation too, and that's actually on sustainability. We can probably discuss that in more detail later, but
Maybe.
for now, I would like to give the floor back to Simone.
No problem. We are more impatient as consumers, definitely. I am more impatient in terms of the turnaround time in terms of delivery. I just click the checkout button now, and I'm already looking at my phone when it's going to be delivered. So definitely, I'm one with you in terms of the consumer behavior. We want same day delivery before, and we have more appetite now for such services, right? How about you, Pierre? I know that you represent the bigger population of SCMAP members who are across industries, right? But if you could generalize what would, especially in the Philippines, right? What would be the changes that you have seen maybe generally across industries here?
Yeah, where do I start? The landscape pre-pandemic is really different from now, right? So I think they say that digitalization was pushed forward by around 10 years, right? Here, how can you imagine? Tell me, pre-pandemic, can you imagine ordering your stuff online, everything online? I remember during that time we do some ordering, but delivery times are 1 week, sometimes months at the furthest. But now you can, when you, like we said, like what you said, Simone, when you order, you expect it to deliver, right? And the reliability has already also increased. When every time you order, the likes of Panda Mart, the likes of Grab Mart, you know that it will arrive. So there's really a big change, and it's actually good. The one thing that allowed the the pandemic allowed is that it pushed forward this state of digitalization, which brings a lot of efficiencies, right? So another change is that supply chain became a rock star overnight, right? So when lockdown happens, everybody was looking to supply chain. Everybody now understood the importance of supply chain even before pre-pandemic, right? Even especially now on the global stage, what used to be the importance of the local supply chain shot up. Now we understand now the linkages on a global stage, like how the effects of a country, a war in Russia and Ukraine affects the common man, the Philippines, right, which is very far away. I assume there are a lot of Filipinos that doesn't even know where Ukraine is right now. Now they know, right? So you know, but whatever happens there, that's how integrated our supply chains are on a global scale, right? Whatever happens then there affects us here, right? The importance of supply chain has increased dramatically, not only on the private side, but especially on the government side. Secondly, I think the other change is that the study, the DTI had a study just recently when they were looking at the logistics cost of sale, the efficiency in the supply chain. The main difference now compared to 2017 or 2018 is that they measure cost, speed, and reliability, right? 2017, 2018, I think it was it's divided equally, maybe around 30, 40% cost, 30% speed, and around 25% reliability, right? But now it's very different. Now cost is around only 10%, right? For the consumers, the cost is not anymore that impactful. The most impactful is actually reliability, getting the stuff to you, right? It's around 80%. So and then the remaining is speed. So now what's important in the supply chain, unlike before, especially in logistics and supply chain, it's all about cost, how to reduce cost, how to optimize. But now what's important is reliability. Actually, I had a discussion earlier with Sodexo. We're talking about supply and demand of a specific product. What they said is what's important for them is actually reliability, because it's really ensuring that you're able to supply, because it affects a lot of their manufacturing process, especially in their kitchens, right? So cost is not anymore a factor, and you know this when you buy something, especially if you want it rush, the cost of delivery is higher, right? A lot of us, if I want it now, I would gladly spend 150 pesos rather than the usual 30 pesos if I need it now, right? So cost in logistics is not anymore that big of a factor, unlike maybe way back 2017, 2018. It's now more on reliability, making sure that it arrives, and especially with everything that's happening, inflation, supply chain disruptions. So that's really the major big difference that we have compared to pre-pandemic time.
100% agree with you. I am a little bit of a bookworm myself after reading about these analyst studies, right? And what you're saying is exactly what Oxford Economics is saying. Pre-pandemic, the topic of supply chain usually gets sidelined by the more flamboyant topics of customer centricity. Oh, my e-commerce ka na ba? Oh, do you have a mobile app, etc. Right? So, but right now during the pandemic, the essentiality of supply chain and manufacturing just became as important as customer centricity, right? And I also agree with you with the whole pre-pandemic, the way that we sell, and I'm going to go now to my colleague Malachy, who's also from SAP. Malachy, the way that we sell before has always been cost savings because of efficiency, because of more streamlined process. But right now, as Pierre said, right, the what sells now is reliability, right? So
Yeah.
the kind of conversations that we have with customers have also changed. Malachy, I'd like to hear from you. I know you're talking to a lot of customers, in fact, Southeast Asia. What have you heard? Has there anything different on in terms of the topic and the discussions that you're having with them on supply chain and manufacturing?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is such an exciting topic, and you can tell that from the passion of the different people talking just on this event alone. You know, what Rajesh was talking about earlier around, you know, the unrivaled disruption that we have seen over the last few years, and even the team of panelists here. I feel so excited to be sharing a panel with the team. You know, that disruption, whether it was as a result of the pandemic, earlier the trade sanctions, or as recently as the world-changing events like the situation in Ukraine, we've seen a world where an organization's supply chain is seen as either its strongest or its weakest facet, and organizations who were prepared with an agile and resilient supply chain have succeeded, whilst others really have been very slow to adapt to digital transformation and have struggled, and in some cases even face falling further behind as an issue in the years to come. So, you know, as Pierre just mentioned there, digitalization, and in particular what we call Industry 4.0 here at SAP in our team, basically offers a holistic approach now for solving both the long-term and the short-term obstacles to growth and productivity. So in that context, however, then in terms of what we're being asked about and what we're talking to customers about, it is important to understand what is Industry 4.0, okay? There's been this massive amount of technological change over the last few years. You know, we even used to refer to this as emerging tech. But this technology has now been accelerated as a result of the recent disruptions. I'm thinking about things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, virtual and augmented reality, advanced analytics, you know, the Internet of Things, robotics, blockchain. I could go on and on. These are the stuff of science fiction in the past, but they're now totally real. And we're seeing customers asking for support with their manufacturing processes, support with their planning processes, Rajesh highlighted earlier, but also support with the logistics aspects, with how they operate and how they manage all of their equipment. And really there is now a reality and how materials, products and services are being made, exchanged and consumed has completely changed. It's a paradigm shift, changing productivity through automation on a scale and scope that we've not really seen before. And of course, then you add into that the fact that these organizations have customers who have expectations that the product cost, the quality, the excellence, the experience, and also the S word, sustainability, is critical as well. So what we've witnessed with our customers in particular is that the manufacturing environment is also having to change. So the focus is no longer on capacity, but on the ability to respond quickly to customer needs, to market changes, while still controlling costs and quality. So until recently, supply chains were mainly measured by efficiency metrics, but today's disruptions are presenting complex challenges, and they're putting supply chain and manufacturing right back at the center, not only of business success, but also in the way that a company differentiates itself. So these are definitely what's front and center in the minds of the people we're talking to today.
Absolutely. And so I imagine that there would be a surge of membership applications, Pierre, on SCMAP, because this is the topic, isn't it? And we're all saying the same thing. It's good that Suzy said what they realized during the pandemic is that they were actually ready for this pandemic. Correct. You know, they're actually pandemic proof, right? Yeah. And that's because they were ready prior to pandemic with all these tools. And you know, Pierre said this advanced the adoption of digital tools for about 10 years. And Malachy said, yes, absolutely. Everybody is now pulling you you're very busy. You're in you travel around Southeast Asia talking to customers on Industry 4.0 now. Artificial intelligence and machine learning aren't buzzwords anymore, isn't it? They are real
Right.
topics being talked about at the moment. So I'm so happy that we're having this conversation. And Suzy, congratulations to you. Like, for a Philippine company and to have realized that we are pandemic proof, right? So that's a good thing. I'm so happy that you had it all together, even when this pandemic hit, and the resilience and sustainability of business already was a strategic objective even before this whole disruption happened. I'd like to talk about the people and process part of things, right? So we talked about 10 years in advance in terms of technology. Some of the companies actually that didn't make it during this pandemic because they really couldn't collaborate well enough with their suppliers or contract manufacturers, etc. Has there been a change into the ways of working? You talking to sales, you talking to your suppliers, your demand planners, or production? I'm interested to know the dynamic change inside the organization as a result of the supply chain changes. And any of you could answer the question. Who wants to take a stab at it?
I suggest the lady in the room.
Okay.
How has it changed?
The lady is Simone. No, for Globe, actually, when we implemented SAP IBP, that was the time that marketing, sales, finance, and procurement actually were able to collaborate already using the tool. And we also have the SAP Jam, right, to be able to make sure that they have a good process on how things are being flowed through, how information are being approved, and so on. So during that, it was difficult at first when we implemented it, and then they got the hang of it. And now when we're using it, we're actually already pushing it through the other business areas. Like we are implementing SAP IBP now in our broadband systems, because we've really seen that there is really value in having a tool that makes people collaborate more, because we know that collaboration is not easy.
Absolutely. So conversation is already not easy. I mean, these function areas are built to actually do a check and balance. Forgive me for this one sentence in Filipino, Malachy. Sa Philippines kasi kailangan talaga there's check and balance, or else, if everything is doing, there's going to be conflicts of interest and segregation of needs or problems, right? So by design, function areas are really there to check the outputs of the other function areas. And so communication, as I said, is by design difficult, but it's good to know from a customer of SAP's that a tool actually helped that. It's also good to know from a management of expectations is that it's not easy to implement it. SAP is not here to say, when you implement this particular technology, everything will go away. All your salespeople will collaborate with your production people in a very seamless manner. No quarrel whatsoever, no challenges. Of course not. But there would be an enabler of that conversation. Pierre, I'd like to hear from you because you're in a logistics company right now, right? So has there been any change on ways of working, processes, collaboration, communication, etc.?
Yes. We've been saying even before the pandemic, supply chain is really all about integration, right? Even before the days of in all the FMCGs, everything is sort of about integrated business planning, no? And it's all about supply chains. The more integrated the supply chain is, the more efficiencies that happens. Right? So and we've been in fact during the pandemic, one of the major problems that we was asked to solve was in agriculture, right? So during the time in the height of the pandemic, where there are all of these lockdowns, USA, approached us and other institutions as SCMAP, how to solve the agricultural problem. They cannot bring their produce to the buyers, so they just had to throw it away because the space itself, the industry itself, is very fragmented. And then compared to the likes of the Nestle's of this world, the Unilever, P&G, that has a very integrated supply chains, we actually help the DTI and DA to connect, to integrate all of the stakeholders into a platform, right? In a platform. This help, and this integration, not only this collaboration, help the farmers to be able to bring their produce, bringing the transporters, bring in the buyers, bring in the warehouse operations. It actually created that link and generate a lot of efficiencies. So like what you said, technology like SAP that connects the different people, because at the end of the day, it's all people, right? It's all about collaboration among people. So connecting people, connecting departments, and then using those connections enhances the synergy between everyone. And then this synergy creates the efficiencies, like what happened to Suzy in Globe, right? And this actually prepared them. And these synergies allow them to be pandemic proof. So that's just basically it. So that's my take on that one.
Thanks, Pierre. You're absolutely spot on. I know it's not part of our list of questions, Malachy, but because we're so deep into this conversation, we talked about the what's, right? Yeah, there is a change in supply chain, consumer behavior, essentiality of supply chain manufacturing. And we talked about, how technology could be an enabler for all these collaboration-wise, efficiency-wise, streamlining, discovering new suppliers, etc. Now, I'd like to ask you, so how do we do all this, right? Like, we're not all Globe Telecom, right? We're not all pandemic free. Unfortunately, we'd like to be Suzy, but but we're not. So, Malachy, we'd like to ask, how do we actually, jump ship into a supply chain transformation? How do we do it, and how long does it take to actually go from point A to point B, from a non-resilient to resilient?
Yeah, it's a pretty good question, and I wish everybody was as prepared as Globe Telecom and Suzy were. But I think what we mustn't lose sight of here is that a transformation is a transformation, right? And what we're talking about here is really digital transformation, right? We're sitting here on a call with well over 50 participants, hearing about, understanding information, knowing about how others are achieving what they're achieving. And no matter what way you look at it, you really need to determine your starting point. So where are you on your digital transformation journey? We offer a maturity assessment, as you know, Simone, at SCP, to help our customers understand what are their existing systems, what are the existing assets they have at their disposal, what machines need to be digitalized, how can they integrate these new capabilities like the Internet of Things, etc., whilst still keeping business as usual running. So that's always a good starting point in terms of determining the maturity. Then the next thing then, of course, is with any of these transformations, is how do you define your priorities? How do you come up with realistic KPIs, right? It's not just about doing it because everyone's doing it. It's not just about digitalizing or automating everything. You really have to choose the best route to a quick win. And in terms of the timeframes, that's really important. The technologies we have today have the ability to offer quick wins. They can deliver quick business outcomes. They can deliver quick profits in a lot of cases, and they can help to contribute to a very meaningful boost in terms of customer satisfaction and growth as well. We recommend that people consider the roadmap as well. So what are the technologies I can embed today? How can I help them to scale up from there? How can I deliver rapid adoption and therefore reconfigure my business models to work with that? And any good transformation roadmap really should allow for agility and growth and for disruption. You know, I'm sure you've all heard the expression from Heraclitus, which is change is a constant, but I heard someone recently saying that disruption is the new constant. So without a doubt, we have to build that in. And it's really important, finally, to mention change management, right? So every project like this is a change management project. It's really important that people understand that this is as much a human journey as it is a technological one. They're really important early steps that can be identified. We can get support from everyone, from specialized professionals, etc. And thanks to the business network now, we have the ability to prepare teams to be super connected on calls like these, with the ability to be able to connect the supplier into these conversations, to build technologies like AI, etc., which are predictive and then can bring the effect on the assets and the manufacturing process by looping in the supplier as well, and really taking all of this data that we're getting from all these different sources and using that to help support a much smoother, more efficient business transformation. So really, I would say that it's about, as with any transformation, it's about knowing where to start, knowing where you're at, and we offer a maturity assessment for that, and then building the roadmap with the right KPIs, and being able now through technology to embed all of the network, your staff, your teams, your customers, and the business network across all of these functions.
Spot on, Malachy, and I agree with you very much. And one of our proof of concept of that particular, you have to know where your starting is, and you have to have a roadmap, and you have to be talking to your partners, vendors, suppliers, as if they're not vendors, but really partners. Right. A proof of concept of that would be Globe, right? We did the whole value and digital maturity assessment prior to the pandemic, even 5 years before the pandemic. Yeah. If I remember it correctly, Suzy, right? And
that's right, 2016, yeah.
2016, and in 2016, we were already looking 5 years ahead, and we're looking where are we right now in the digital roadmap in terms of supply chain as it relates to the strategic objectives of the CEO and the CFO, etc. What would be, what change would Globe have to do to go from point A to point B by 20x, right? So, and as Malachy said, it is a journey and it's also change management. So Globe and SAP actually have like quarterly connects to make sure that we do have these roadmaps in place. Kung papalitan man, if we're going to change it a little bit because consumer behavior have changed, I don't know, drastically because of a war in Ukraine or something like that. So absolutely spot on, Malachy. Thanks for that. And for those who are tuned in, I'd like to say, in behalf of SAP and in behalf of the digital supply chain team, I'd like to offer that particular conversation with you. SAP is not a technology advisor. It's not just a technology advisor, but also a transformation advisor. Please talk to us to conduct a technology and process maturity, and here your organization SCMAP and SCP could partner on this so that we could look at an overall averaging on what is the digital maturity or resilience maturity of companies here in the Philippines. I think that would be great and a trailblazing initiative. Don't you think so? Yeah.
Yeah. Are you asking me?
Don't you think so, rhetorically? But of course, I also need a nudge of approval. Yes.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree. I'm all about supply chain integration and especially bringing in technologies. That's the only way you can bring all of that efficiencies and all of that pandemic proofiness, right? So yeah, totally agree.
Now, I know that everybody's back to back to back. That is one effect of this pandemic that I actually do not like, because we all need a third space. We all need the breathing space. But unfortunately, we do not have the liberty of time. All of us here in the panel, Suzy and Malachy and Pierre, actually have a 3 o'clock. So I'd like to end the panel with that. Maybe we would have another session of panel for sustainability, because that's an important and critical topic that we all should be having. And Suzy, Malachy, and Pierre, it would be great to have you as the same panel, because I think that you bring in, the different representations that this panel needs for a holistic conversation. With that said, maraming salamat. Malaki salamat sa'yo, Pierre and Suzy.
Salamat.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Of course,
so much.
Rose, back to you.
All right, thank you very much there, Simone, and thank you as well to our speakers and panelists for the past hour, Rajesh Mohan and Malachy Martin of SAP, Suzy Urbano of Globe Telecom, and Pierre Carlo Curay of SCMAP. And thank you for taking part on this edition of SCMAP Live. Watch out for the next SCMAP Live session in the coming months. And finally, a big thank you to our event partner, SAP, for making this edition possible. You have truly shown us how our road to digital transformation will look like should we want it for our organizations. And before we close, a reminder to answer our event feedback form, which you can access by scanning the QR code or visiting the URL on the screen. The first 30 to respond will receive an electronic Grab vouchers, all right? So you can also keep in touch with SCMAP's upcoming events and activities on our website, scmap.org, as well as on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And that wraps up for this edition of SCMAP Live. I'm Rose DeBeo, wishing you all a good day. We hope to see you at our future events, both virtual and in person. Bye-bye.